Hi, this is Mark Montgomery. I'm founder and CEO of KYield. This video was triggered by another video posted yesterday on LinkedIn by Peter Norvig, who is a colleague of sorts. Peter is the head of research at Google, brilliant computer scientist, and if you haven't read his books and papers, then highly recommend it. He's essentially must read for engineers and researchers in artificial intelligence. Peter, if you happen to watch this, this should indeed demonstrate that my videos are even worse than yours. While we agree that machine learning toolmakers are facing difficult challenges, as does more broadly AI adoption in the enterprise, which is a topic that is very common between KYield and decision makers in the enterprise. And we also apparently agree that enterprise customers are not yet served as they should be. I wanted to drill down into why these issues are so critically important. Let's start by looking at the benefits and liabilities of commoditized computing, which is found in open source and proprietary products and systems. I think Microsoft serves as the best example to discuss this and the challenges of commoditized IT as the companies mature. As Windows and Office first scaled in the 1980s, they provided customers with a competitive advantage through a boost in productivity and interoperability. It was a new system and new products that provided first mover advantage for those that adopted it. Since the digital products cost next to nothing to replicate, scaling the products was highly profitable. So it was a rare win-win-win situation for customers in Microsoft and the broader economy. However, as the product scaled worldwide in the 1990s and beyond, they became a necessary commodity, not a competitive advantage. Companies then needed to build expensive custom functionality on top of the Windows and the desktop productivity suite. However, there's limitations with the tech stack in any company, regardless. So Peter and I agree on that as well, is that there's challenges with any of these companies, particularly when it comes to interoperability and standards. A similar dynamic occurs for any IT company as it scales globally. I refer to this as the differentiation paradox. Ubiquity has an upside initially for society, the company, and the customer, but over time they turn into more of a utility or even a government tax that everyone then must pay just to get in the game. If this sounds a bit like communism, it should. It's very similar. As companies become very large globally with commoditized products, they begin to not only behave like governments, other than the profit, of course, but eventually they have as much or more power as governments. Hence the recent term that they call them the new sovereigns. This is actually one of the priority concerns today for the U.S. intelligence community, and rightfully so. The interests of these companies as they grow conflict directly with their home countries and other countries, or even democracy, or Western liberal democracy, larger than just the United States. Commoditization favors scale, and to continue to scale, multinationals have a powerful incentive to pay whatever fee a China, for example, demands for access to their markets. And China realizes this and has exploited companies, even if it contains existential risk to democracy. The differentiation paradox, or lack thereof, is one of the main reasons we see a very small group of companies with multi-billion-dollar IT budgets pulling away from everyone else in artificial intelligence. This is especially true in the enterprise functions and enterprise-wide systems. They are the only ones who can afford the talent infrastructure for differentiation. This is a very small group of companies. We're talking about 10 billion or more in annual budget in IT and research and development. That's why it's so important for the development of new companies with new systems, particularly in generational shifts like we're now experiencing in AI systems, so that everyone else can compete with differentiation. And we have the proper incentives for adopting, aligned with adoption of these new technologies. Creative destruction is needed, for example, in IBM-dominated markets back in the late 1970s. In the early 1980s, it provided an opening for Microsoft. The same was true for Google in the late 1970s or 1990s, as the incumbent search engines just didn't have the technical ability to meet the exponential needs of the web as it grew. Google, that's why I supported both of these companies at those times. They provided a critical new functionality that not just the customers and the technology required of their eras, but also the broader economy. While Peter and his colleagues are correct that machine learning toolmakers are having a difficult time, and Google is probably the best in the world at serving the needs of machine learning developers and tool makers independently. It's not due to excess fragmentation in the marketplace. Rather, it's due to open source service model and the lack of differentiation in their value to customers. This situation calls for new companies with new offerings and new systems, not more consolidation. Amazon exploited this situation in the enterprise brilliantly before the AI revolution occurred by applying what they learned in e-commerce to AWS. An incumbent IT giant simply could not have created AWS due to legacy conflicts in technology and business models. Some were technology stacks and others had service business models. They could not have cannibalized at that level that a new entrant could provide, which is precisely what we need today in artificial intelligence. So now let's take a look at why adoption of AI systems has been slow in the enterprise. The main reason is because a GPU and open source algorithms are similarly insufficient to achieve a sustainable tech revolution as Intel's microprocessor was in the late 1970s. The PC revolution required an enormous new ecosystem to serve the needs of organizations. The desktop needed an operating system, and the office needed interoperability. While it wasn't necessary for one company to provide both, and many have argued that it would have been better if it had been many companies, the truth was the PC industry wouldn't work together on standards. So what commonly happens is he who owns the power becomes the standard. That's precisely what occurred in that situation and many, many others that all of us that have been in this industry for any length of time have observed. The first phase of the ML revolution 5-6 years ago, which is morphed into an AI revolution today, it started off backwards in the enterprise. Yes, the GPU provides the enabler, but the advice from consulting firms was frankly wrong. They had it backwards. Yes, organizations need to learn and attract talent. But no, not even the world's largest and most powerful organizations in the world can do it alone, or on top of commoditized infrastructure alone. The customers and their ML toolmakers first need a functional system specifically designed to meet the needs of their organization, not IT vendors. For organizations to fully realize the value of AI systems, it requires a new type of OS, not a computer OS, but a distributed organizational OS that enhances the human workplace and experience of the workers, as well as their customers. In order to achieve that lofty goal, the system must have data governance and security designed in from inception, and the ability to scale across the largest organizations. Data would need to remain under the control and ownership of customers, which is another big problem that is holding up adoption. The system would need to achieve yield management of knowledge with functions tailored to the needs of each entity so that they can differentiate and build a vibrant, diversified, dynamic economy that won't collapse under the weight of a few giant super companies. That's why we called it the KYield OS, as originally envisioned in 1997, but it would take about 15 years to first become technically viable, and only then on supercomputers. By 2018, the price and performance of machine learning would finally become possible to deliver on most devices to each individual, which is needed to achieve the vast majority of use cases. Machine learning tool makers and a wide variety of other services and tools can add unlimited value on top of the KYield OS. But first, you have to have the right system in place. So I hope that I've been able to clear this up a bit from the perspective of someone that's been in the trenches for 22 years now with a new type of system that is better designed for the scaling of artificial intelligence in the enterprise. Thank you.